All right, I guess we will get started. Welcome, everybody, to workshop number 3 for film and television. We have a lot to get through, so I am not going to pause too much. I'm just going to go through a couple of items that we need to deliver for the project, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about tools and technique and ended up with some software for editing and help you with any additional items you may need for your video delivery. All right, let's get started. So first and foremost, again, for our video project, we want to make sure that we deliver exactly what we're looking for and asking for. Okay. So as you know, this particular project is looking at a video that is surrounded by one scene. We're not looking for a long film. So one scene, what does that entail? It has a beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ending of a movie. It can be, but even a scene has kind of an opening moment where you're introduced to the character. You have a middle moment where you're seeing the conflict between the two characters or another character that's in the same location. And then somehow those two characters end their conversation. Okay, either one gets up and leaves, or another character enters, or the scene can just fade out. It can just cut to black. But we do need to see those 3 stages in your scene. Generally, the scene is going to have 2 characters for that reason, because we're showing a message in the scene. We're trying to get across to our people that we need this moment to be affecting others in the scene. So you don't want it to be a monologue if you can help it. You want it to have dialogue between 2 characters or more. And very importantly, a scene generally starts and ends between locations. Okay, so we'll get into that when we go over the scene um, formatting for the script. But when you change locations, generally that means the scene needs to end and you're starting a new scene. So for this assignment, since it's only one scene, we want to see one location. Okay, I call this in production, professionally, production value. So in addition to writing your scene out, making sure that there's a message that comes across in the theme of what we're asking you to do for the project, we also want to see that you put some thought and planning into who your actors are as characters and what they're wearing. Okay, what props are they using? Is there stuff in the background that's distracting? Is it not actually part of the scene? Is there equipment in the shot? So we are looking at production value of your scenes and what you're delivering. And we want to make sure when it says set is dressed, it means that you have props in the background, or you have um, locations dressed in a way that it makes sense to the time period of your piece or the theme that you're going for. This also includes color scheme. So if you have actors that are wearing certain colors or distracting logos, you really want to make an effort. We're going to look at that seriously and assess it, that you are putting the effort into who your characters are and that you actually made the choice to put them in wardrobe and put props in the scene. Okay. Um, in in a technical aspect of this, just want to make an extra note. This also includes lighting. So if your characters are too dark to see, we want to make sure that you made an effort to put light on them with a bounce, or maybe you have lighting available to you, or you have a softbox that go over it so it's not such harsh lighting. Okay. And also you might want to utilize using light from outside. You can shoot in daylight. It's the most natural lighting, and cameras generally work really well with natural light. You do want to be careful that it's not too bright, because then it also can have the reverse effect where there's too much light in the scene. But this is a part of the whole look of your set. Okay. Additionally, when we're looking at what shots make up a scene, I believe we've talked a little bit about this, but we're going to go over the storyboard tool and exactly how you plan out your shots so that you can tell a story with multiple angles. Okay, this is very important. We do not want to see scenes that just have one stagnant shot, and you can tell that it's stagnant because the camera is just stuck on one angle. Okay. We want to see that you've made an active effort in the angles that you've chosen because you are directing the way the message is visually told in addition to the words and the written text. Okay. Visually telling your story is just as impactful as the words that are said and the lighting that is used and the sound that is used. Okay. And we will be assessing that you put that sequence together in an order that flows and makes sense. So that's going to come down to your editing, but it really also is going to come down to the prep work that you do. Okay. Using your storyboard, looking at your shot list and putting that into an order that makes sense, and then putting that into active terms of filming it and putting it into a sequence when you edit. So the shots that we need to see in your work for this project is what we call in the industry a master shot. This is generally a wide angle, generally, that covers most of the scene. So you're from start to finish, you're in this angle, you're filming the whole entire scene, and then you say cut, okay? And then you can do this several times, but like we mentioned earlier, don't get stuck in that wide shot because it is going to be what we call coverage. It is a master shot that covers the entire scene from start to finish. And it's great when, let's say, in some of these other shots that we're going to go through, you mess up a line or something and you can cut back to the master. So that's why we call it coverage, because if something happens between your actors or there's something going on, you always have that wide master of the whole scene. Worst case scenario, you are able to submit your whole project because we have the beginning, middle, end on screen. Okay. But we are also looking for an over the shoulder shot, or it can be a medium shot. It just depends on what you feel stylistically you like. But there's two options here. It's either kind of like medium, like how I'm framed, or a little bit further back. Okay, that I'm almost a close up here, but medium. And you can either achieve this by putting a medium on your first actor and your second actor from the front, or you can go over the shoulder of the first actor facing the second actor and then reverse it. So you can have these two over the shoulder shots. Okay. But they're similar framing as to kind of like what I'm in right now, or a little bit more wide. We would definitely like you to utilize a close-up. Close-ups tell the emotions of a character. They usually focus just on the face, and they're very powerful, but don't just have the scene in close-up too. So you want to mix these angles. And then finally, if there's a really important prop or something that needs to be seen on a phone screen in your scene, then use what we call an insert, which is generally a close-up on a prop or some sort of inanimate object that is very important to the story. Okay. So these are the angles that need to be in your piece. If for whatever reason you don't need an insert, make sure you at least have those close-ups of some of the other options. And then we are going to be assessing your editing sequence. So how well you used your tools, like your storyboard and your shot list, and followed them to create this final scene or this final video. And it needs to flow into a nice cut scene. Okay. Most important here too is you don't want your sound, if you can help it, you don't want your sound to only be sourced from your video device. So if you're using a camera or you're using a cell phone, you might want to consider also using a wireless mic, or you can use a device called a Zoom recorder or any kind of recording device. And you want to get that as close to your actors as possible, or you can use a boom mic, and that boom has to be connected to a recording device, but that is a way to get your microphone as close as possible to your actors without getting it in the shot. So we will be looking to see if that mic gets in the shot. You want to make sure that it's not there. And you want to be checking your frame on your recording device, either on your camera or phone or iPad or whatever you're recording with. You want to always check the frame so that you don't have a mic in the shot. Even if you have it wirelessly connected to someone, it pops up. You want to clip it right underneath the close so that it does not show. Okay. And if we have a little bit of extra time, I'm hoping to show you also how to add titles and end credits to your projects. This is very nice, kind of beginning and end, especially since this is a scene challenge. We don't really have like an opening credits and closing credits title sequence like we would in a full movie. So this kind of is a way for you to put your personal touch on your project, name it, give yourself and your crew the proper credit. Every single video should have some way of identifying it. So we do hope that you consider including a title at least and end credits. Okay, so those are the requirements. I'm going to move on now. Deliverables. Slightly different than requirements. Requirements are kind of how we're going to be assessing, making sure that you deliver them. These are the actual tangible items that we would like you to submit if you can, okay? So for first and foremost, since this is heavily revolving around your script, we would like to see your script. A template has been provided, and I hope that you have access to either script software or use the free template that we're provided. I'm going to go through that template so that you can kind of get an idea of how to work with it. But generally, we want to see how you formatted your script, how you wrote it out, what was your thought process, and that you followed it when you filmed your scene. Okay. Second of all, we would like to see how you storyboarded after, coming up with your scene idea and your script idea. How did you storyboard it out? What were the intended shots? And did you actually get those intended shots? Another great tool, like I mentioned before, is your shot list. The shot list goes hand in hand with the storyboard, but what's really important about the shot list is when you're actually filming, you can have your storyboard up or have it in a folder, but the shot list is used to take notes on each take that you do. And as you're going through and saying action and cut, you're going to mark off on the shot list, okay, I did another take. That one wasn't so good. We're going to do another one. Okay, let's go for action and cut again. And by the third take, it should be starting to look the way you want it to look. You should be capturing the angle that you need to capture. And you might want to mark that one and say that was the best one. So I circle it. I put a little note that sound was good, or that picture worked. And that's going to help you a ton when you're going to edit, because you go look, it's like the notes on all your takes. You go and edit, or if you're working with an editor, they will very much appreciate how organized your shots were done. And you can much quicker go through your footage and pull the angles that you're going to use for the final master video. Okay. Another recommendation I have for you is, whoops, one second. I'm going to go back here. Is the, of course I hit that, 1 second. So another recommendation I have for you is the poster art, because the poster art is going to give you a chance to put your entire theme or story into a summary. So I'm going to put these two together to kind of help explain what we want to see here. You want to be able to summarize what your scene is about in probably 2 to 3 short sentences, so a little blurb. That's really important, especially if you eventually want to use this clip somewhere else. You want to put it on YouTube, it already asks you for like a little caption about that video. But it's also used in a marketing kind of way, because if you make a social media post about it, or you want to tell people and give the message about what this is about, you want to have a hook in there, like 2 characters meet and they learn the importance of how art can help them see their differences. Okay. So it's concise, but it may not necessarily give away the ending, but it definitely is intriguing and makes people want to click on your video and watch it. So you want to think kind of how you're going to write out your summary of your scene and include it in your submission. And also poster art is basically the summary, but in picture form. So one picture or something that could be used either as an Instagram post or a TikTok style. And or it could be a movie poster if you want to go that far, but it's much harder to do a movie poster of one scene. So I like to call it kind of a picture that summarizes your scene, okay? Encapsulates the whole thing. And of course, the final delivery is your final video. 5 minutes max. Should not be 5 minutes because as you can see, the script is 1 to 3 pages. So really, one page equals 1 minute on screen. So if you have a script that's 3 pages, you'll have hopefully a video project with credits between 3 at most 5 minutes long. Okay, really probably will not go more than 4. All right. So for this slide, I'm actually going to go out of screen sharing mode so I can kind of go through the template with you and show you just how easy it is to kind of change this. But basically, because it's a little bit bigger here, it's a little easier to see. So I'm going to annotate for you really quickly. So at the start of your formatter, this template, you notice that I've already included in the template INT, school day, and okay, hold on, day. So INT stands for interior. So this scene would be taking place inside of a school. School is the location of the scene or the setting. And then day is day or night, so daytime, obviously. Why is it important to put that at the top of every single scene? It's actually also for your prep. If it said night, your lighting is going to be very different. So as you progress and use scripts more and more, you would want your crew to know exactly what they have to prepare, what equipment they're going to need. Okay. Also, the location. I wrote very generic school. You may want to put the main character's name and their kitchen because it's taking place in the kitchen. You know, you want to be specific enough that if someone was helping you to set design or set dress, they already kind of have a picture in their head, but you don't want to like list out what the setting looks like in the scene heading. It's just very clean. So it's kind of a nice mix of both. If I had to change this at all, I'd probably say classroom as opposed to school, just so that I could be more specific in the set location that I'm looking for. Or third grade classroom if it had to be like younger kids and I was trying to really specify to the person who's reading this, like that they could actually see that location. Okay. All right, now I'm going to stop using this for a second, and I'm going to escape here from, I'm still going to share, but I'm going to exit out just so I can go into this template and just show you a little bit better. Okay. So for the screenplay format that is free and available through Google Forms provided, I did something a little bit different just so that you could be clear on who your characters are in the scene. It does not have to generally be included in a typical screenplay format, but for this project, I find it kind of helpful. So when you first introduce a character, see how I clicked in there and I just deleted it. You can, you put the name of your character in all caps first because you're introducing that character. So the actor is going to know, oh, I have to, that's the first time I'm appearing. Well, this is the first scene. So of course, this is the first time they're appearing. Let's see. Doesn't like how I spelled that. We'll try it this way. For the purpose of this movie, I think she is 16. So I'm putting the H so that I have kind of a brief understanding or a brief picture of who this character is. And 16 doesn't like to talk to anyone, sits alone at her desk. Okay. And already I probably would, like we discussed, I'd probably put, also notice the scene heading is in all caps as well. Interior, classroom, we'll make it high school classroom day. Okay. And sometimes I like putting a dash here too. Okay. Shirley 16 doesn't like to talk to anyone, sits alone at her desk. So sits is present active. Most scripts are in present active because when you're reading a script, you want to visualize what is happening as it's happening in front of you. It doesn't matter if it's a flashback. You would put probably flashback, at the top of the scene heading if you wanted to denote that, but it's still happening in the time of the flashback when you write your scene. It's not, didn't like to talk to everyone and sat alone, right? So be careful when you start writing out your script and check that, okay? Because it's going to help you in the writing process. If you're thinking actively of as it looks in front of the people who are watching, it's actually a little bit easier to write fluidly. All right. Now we're going to go into Shirley 16. Great. John, let's say he is 17. Okay. Notices she is sitting alone and throws a piece of paper at her. Now, for your purposes, you may want to capitalize piece of paper, or you might want to capitalize paper, just because we're kind of in between this temp script and shooting script, but you're probably going to need this to film pretty immediately as you start writing this. So paper capitalized, I know, oop, there's a prop I need to get. Okay, so it's very important to remember that. I'm making it a flashback, I guess. I just added that. So again, there may be props in your flashback that you need time to find if you're going to shoot in a different time period, right? You need to make sure that they match that time period and that their wardrobe matches that time period if you're going to do that. If it's present day, a little bit easier. Let's say you have a phone or you have something else, that's very different, right? So we want to make sure that you have the correct description. Sometimes in character descriptions, you can give a little more visual about who this character is so that when your actor reads the script, they can picture that character. You can go a little bit further and really write out a full character description for your actors in the prep too, so that they have a better understanding of what wardrobe they may have or what makeup they may have to put together, or if you're going to be acting, what you need to collect and put together. But this really sets up the scene. We're putting together actions of what they're doing. And then in the character heading, or the character name, you're going to put who speaks first. So I don't know if this is the right choice right now, but I'm going to go with it because I'm envisioning if a piece of paper is thrown at her, she's going to respond. So, hey, right? And then John, just so you know, if you look at this template, I highlighted it and then I started typing, and it will leave it in the format that it's already preset in the template. A lot of people, what they think they have to do is highlight it and then change it to centered because it feels centered. But if I do that, it'll actually change the alignment and it will look all wonky. So I'm just warning you, if you're changing something, highlight it first and then say, and start typing. Okay. That's the best way to use this template. It isn't quite aligned to the correct format of a script, forgive me, but other programs you do, if you have access to them, they actually put it into the correct alignment, and that's even better. But for this, it's a free template, and it is going to give you one of your essential tools that you will need to film your scene. Okay, so again, I'm not going to write the full scene out here. Essentially, she starts drawing something on this piece of paper, and he is amazed and has a change of heart, and learns that he shouldn't judge a book by its cover or tease someone just because they're more shy and quiet. Again, that's going with theme of what we're coming up with here, showing the power of the arts and how it can change either the people around you or has changed you in some way. All right, so that's the template. I'm going to go back to presenting. Okay, so how do I get this gone? Sorry about that, everyone. Okay. So another very important part of what we're going to be looking at is how you utilize your camera to tell a story. Not only is the script and the words on the page and how the actors deliver their lines important for the power of your scene, but we also need to see that you are paying attention to the coverage that we're asking for. Remember, I mentioned coverage are those different camera angles, your master, your medium, your over the shoulder, your close up, basics, and that they all align into a smooth sequence to make a film. I'm going to play this video very briefly because this goes over some coverage, some basic shots. There we go.
Hey there, it's Todd, and let's talk about coverage and how that pertains to shooting video. Now, unless you're shooting a live event like a birthday party or a baseball game, you're going to probably shoot your scenes more than once. And when you do film it again, you'll most likely shoot it or cover it from different angles. Those different angles or compositions of the same scene are your coverage. Your basic coverage should include a wide shot, a medium shot, and a close-up shot. Each one of those is going to be important to help you tell your story. A wide shot helps to inform the audience of where the scene is taking place. A medium shot helps to inform the audience who the scene is about. And then a close-up helps to inform the audience the emotion or the feeling of characters in that scene. So be sure to cover your scene or shoot a variety of coverage so that you have the most amount of options when you eventually go to edit your video. I always like to have more options, even if I don't end up using them. Now, there are definitely more options when it comes to coverage. You could do extreme close-ups, you could do an ultra wide, you can do an over the shoulder. But get familiar with these basics, the wide, the medium, and the close-up, and then you can move on to more complicated coverage techniques. Now, obviously, rules are meant to be broken, but...
Well, I'm going to stop it there. But yes, rules are meant to be broken. So, as he mentioned, these are the master, you have the close-up, the over the shoulder, the medium, and or other types of shots. So what do we mean by other types of shots? Really
hey there, it's Todd, and let's talk about...
So, sorry, this is warped on this slide. I believe this is also included as a tool for you, but you can find examples of all these types of shots online. You can speak to your teachers, but basically, this is kind of what everybody starts with. And when they're thinking and conceptualizing visually what kind of shots they want, they're thinking about not only the framing. So he mentions, wide. We mentioned also like close up, and it's how the subject is framed inside of your frame. But there's also how the camera moves, how the camera tilts, or the angle the camera is set at that can change the way we perceive or how we see what's going on in the scene. You, as a director of this piece, or the cinematographer, or even the producer, depending on where you put yourself, need to make definitive choices. Because if you're kind of like, yeah, that will work, or you don't bother with making the shot aligned and even, you don't know it, but you're actually telling the audience something by the choice or lack of choice that you made with your camera. So, for instance, very basic, very basic. You might have a very wide shot. And for whatever reason, you're like, oh, that's good enough. It shows the top of the head to the bottom of the feet of my characters. I can see when the character walks into the scene. Simple, done. Everything's covered. But you didn't notice that it kind of looked like the back of the horizon line of whatever you were shooting. It kind of looked like the back of the horizon line of what you were shooting looked like you were sinking on the Titanic. And you didn't pay attention to it because when it was wide, you saw everything in the frame and you're like, I'm good to go. But now guess what? Someone who's watching is going, why does that world look like it's kind of tilting or sinking and now that's your master. That's the thing you have to cut back to, and it's not going to look right. So when you're setting up your camera, you also want to make sure that it's matching the frames correctly and take an extra second. Big tip to you. If you're shooting on a camera that has an autofocus or has something that zooms, be very careful how you use it. You want to shoot the wide by itself. So shoot it and forget it kind of thing. Set it and forget it, okay? Put it in the wide, film it, film the whole scene, and cut. Don't go, oh, I also need a close-up, so I'm going to, shoot the wide and then zoom in the middle of it and get the close-up. That's really risky because, first of all, you're taking away a job from your editor. It's not really fair. But in that transition, it's very jarring, right? There is a stylistic choice and a reason to use zoom. Usually it's like a dramatic reveal, or a character is having some kind of epiphany, or it's a comedic timing, right? Between the moment when the person is like talking and then all of a sudden they are shocked or realize something. The zoom can be used very divisively, but it is a craft decision. It's a choice. It should not be done, I'm sorry to say this, but out of laziness. It should not be done out of laziness. It should be done where you're actually planning it out and we should see it on your shot list. Okay. A couple of other things to note that weren't in the other video. There's an establishing shot on here. There's lots of stock footage. If, let's say, if you're watching something on TV and it cuts from a classroom scene to someone's house or a classroom scene to an apartment building, sometimes there might be an outside shot of this apartment building that gives a clue to the audience that, oh, it's happening in there. You may not have actually filmed in an apartment building. You might have filmed on a set, or you might have filmed in, your classroom, or you might have filmed somewhere else, but you used this establishing shot to establish the location. People do this a lot when they shoot with green screen. It looks a little cheesy. We recommend not doing this. But if you're really stuck, or you have an option to a green screen and you have the right software, which we're going to go over in a second, you might want to start with a shot of a mountain. Okay, let's say your scene is taking place on a mountainside and it's a hiking trip. You might want to start with an establishing stock footage of a mountain, and then you kind of cut to two people hiking and they're already in the woods. Or maybe you're shooting it in a studio that's lit similar to a mountainside and the background is a green screen. Okay. The trouble with green screen for many purposes is you not only need the wide green background, but you might need also green screen that matches the background of the close-up and the background of the two-shot and the background of the insert. So be careful. Sometimes green screen feels like the right choice at that moment, but once you start filming with it and you don't have all the appropriate technique or appropriate software and markers on your set, it becomes pretty difficult fast to map unless you are planning to do that and you have experience with it. I would really encourage you to consider a location that is real, a set that you can dress in real life, a set that you have access to for your scene, because it will make the filming process a lot quicker, and you'll be able to focus on the craft of your shots, the camera movement of your shots, and the delivery of the lines of your actors. Okay. So that's just my tip of the day for this particular project. But again, you might have a real vision for your green screen, and you don't have access to the Brooklyn Bridge, and you want a scene that takes place in New York City specifically, or for whatever reason you had a transformative experience with the arts, and it has to be that place, or it has to be on the beach. Okay, I get it. I understand. You just can't get to the beach that day. So be it. So consider your options, but definitely consider, please, a real life set, as it will be easier. Okay, so something else that I mentioned is, like, you could choose to tilt your camera to show, like, you could use camera movement to show that a character is becoming disoriented or they're going through something, but don't do it because you didn't put your camera on a tripod, right? Be smart about your choices. Don't be a lazy filmmaker, because your audience will appreciate it more. And all that hard work you went into making the scene, you want it to be reflected in your final product. That's really the point here, is like, you want to show off how good of a filmmaker you can be. This scene is a way to market yourself. So don't race through it. Don't just pick up a camera and start filming and following the action with your camera. Really plan out your shots, okay? Set up your first angle, like we talked about. Flip to the next and set up your next angle. So set up your close-up, set up your medium shot. And you can also start getting stylistic if you understand. So, like, if you see there's a high angle shot, high angle is used to show, like, power over a character. In this scene, that might be something that you really want to consider. Or a low angle shot, right? Low angle shows how another character has, they're looking down and they have power over someone else. A Dutch angle can be used for disorienting purposes, or it could be used just to show, like, a beginning of a memory or a dream. An over the shoulder shot has other great power because it gives a different perspective or a different angle for the audience as they're observing these two people talking. You get to see the reaction of somebody else from the other side. So there's lots of reasons why you want to consider using these angles and not just the basic coverage, but please, please, please plan it out. That being said, the storyboard. Okay, so having access to the storyboard gives you the ability to plan your shots and not just, show up the day of making this project and, like, filming, and then realizing, oh no, I don't have the master like I thought, or oh no, I don't have the close up of that really important prop. Okay. So in this case, in this example that I've given you guys, it's very important to pay attention to some of the ways it's organized. Okay. You have the scene. So you would put the scene number. This is an example of one of the films that we've worked on before with other students. Scene A, this would be what I would consider calling the master for this scene. As you can see, the two characters, and again, forgive me, it's a little squished because of the formatting of the slide, but it's two characters talking to each other, and you can see it here. And then you have basically the reverse over the shoulder of the second character and the reverse over the shoulder of the first character. And then you have the reverse wide. And that's really it. But you get all of the information in this scene. Okay. So consider these tools, the storyboard. I just wrote out, like, the scene that it was from. I see the date. I see the page numbers. Sometimes you might have more than one page. Let's say there's an important insert shot or something, it might go to the next page. So you want to keep track and order. I would put, like, a little note, like, this is my master. This is my over the shoulder of At Life or John. And this can also be used with the shot list. So that, like, again, it's just a list of your shots. So you're kind of keeping track of the order of your shots, but it's not necessary. Okay. You might want to use just the shot list to take notes on each shot, like I mentioned earlier. Okay. And so for that reason, you would leave it blank until you actually, the day of filming, you would fill it out. See how it says take 1, 2, 3. I might want to just write that out. 1, 2. Oh, 2 was good. Circle, done. Okay. Moving right along. So now we're going to get to some of the software as promised. Suggested editing software for different devices. Again, I don't know what you have at home. All of these have their unique quirks and special techniques. iMovie comes free with Macs, comes free on iPads, and it comes free on iPhones. It's very limited in taking in more than 1 or 2 camera angles, and with green screen, it can be a bit frustrating. So I don't recommend it, only for the fact that it's free. And the way in which you ingest your footage, it has to be through the device that you recorded, or it's uploaded through an SD card adapter into your device. So it can be a little bit tricky getting the footage into the timeline. Final Cut Pro, X10, whatever, it's a little bit easier. It has some of the great filters and add-ons and additional things that will benefit you. If you have the skill sets, it's definitely something that would be a little bit easier, but it does have a cost to use. Quick tip, you can download a free trial. And for this project, you can use it. I believe it's up to 30 days. And there's also student options available. And if you have access to it, that would be the route I would go for this particular project, just because it sets up, you can set up your timeline pretty quickly. You can ingest your footage. And if you can see in this slide here, these squares are the footage. So you would import, you do file, import, and whoop, went too far. But you file import the footage that you need, and it would basically populate in that little squares, all those squares that you saw in your project. And you just click on the video you want, you drag it down into what we call the timeline. As you can see down here, this is the timeline. This is Premiere, but it's basically a similar setup where you have the timeline in your software, and you would bring that footage down into the timeline, and then you would trim it to get rid of the slate, get rid of the cut, and you would trim it and line it up in as many video tracks as you want. Okay. Adobe Premiere Rush is a mobile option that is lower cost than Adobe Premiere. Adobe Premiere is the ideal standard for right now for production editing for these projects, but you do need to pay for it. And that is also why I'm not going to go too in depth on how to use it. So I'm actually going to demo WeVideo, which is kind of like iMovie in its limitations, unfortunately, but it's all online based. So if you have a Chromebook, or if you have a phone, or if you have access to a laptop, you will be able to crunch your footage and edit for the basic purposes of this assignment. So for that reason, I'm going to stop sharing for a quick second. And then I'm going to change it. Share. Okay. Let's do this one. Okay. So in this software, or this online platform, the setup is very similar to a lot of the other programs. You have a folder for My Media. You have clips of like stock footage, which I really appreciate because it's like a pain in the butt to import into a lot of programs. But this has like unlimited stock footage. It's like we were talking about earlier, you could just type in mountain and your video clip or, something could pop up, and then you just click it and drag it into your timeline that is down here at the bottom. Now I've started to assemble a little scene. that we shot in the past. There's also images, stock images. There's actually stock audio, which is really cool. There is text, which we mentioned, like if you want to create your title for your piece, you can change the title sequence. I think there's even, there's even a credits template. So this is all online based. You can log in at wevideo.com and you can use your Google Chrome email from your school to log in. It sets you up with an account right away. The one that it will set you up with is the free version. And the free version, unfortunately, does put a watermark on your project, but I believe there is a way that you can upgrade where that doesn't happen. But if not, this type of editing process is very similar to all of the platforms. So whatever platform you have access to, this is what we're kind of looking for. Okay. So first things first, we want to explore. I'm going to go back to my video, my media, and I've created folders, but there's lots of ways you can click import in any of your editing platforms. You click import and it will, you go on your computer or in your external, you can find your external hard drive and you would import your footage. Or if you shot on a camera that has an SD card, you would take an SD card reader and put it into your device adapter, depending on what input you have, USB, or if you have a Thunderbolt. You usually find a card reader that would work with your device and then put your card reader into that device. If you're working off of an iPad to edit, I would recommend uploading it through a computer and then going through the iPad to edit. But if you have a way of sharing or airdropping your footage into the iPad or shooting with the iPad and it goes directly into your library, then that's another way that you know the drill if you know how to use that platform. Okay. But in this case, I would recommend the SD card from a camera and use an adapter. You would browse and select, you'd select it from that card reader, or you'd select it from the files that are on your device. Okay. And basically, and it has an option to go through Dropbox too. If that's, if you talk with your teachers and they have an account to upload footage into Dropbox through like a device at school, that might be a cool way to avoid any of the hardware issues. So you're importing and then they're going to populate into, see like this, they're going to populate into your drive right here, or your folder. And I've already kind of created a timeline where I have my wide shot. And then this is my other master. So you notice how it's like top of the head to the bottom of the feet, right? Another master that I can cut to. And then I'm using what is called the timeline. I'm dragging it. I'm just kind of observing some of the shot choices that I've made. And then I'm dragging it across. Okay, so here is a prime example of what I was talking about. I wasn't quite able to focus, right? So I may not use this clip, but this is the over the shoulder / medium shot that I'm looking for. And that cut to the other actor. To trim, you can either slide and shorten it, right? Maybe go right about here, right? Pick it up, you can just drag it across and you're going to look for, where is my entry point? When does he actually, right about, I'm going to cut on the action. When did he come into the scene? See, in my wide, he's not quite in.
Hey guys, what are you doing?
So see, he sat down right there. I may want to take my clip and place it right about where he sat so that I'm looking, there's the action where he's sitting. And I cut this a little bit too soon because I was trying to get rid of that blurriness. But really, I want to cut on where, see how he's sitting? I would want to cut on that, okay? So that the action of, he's in the motion of sitting together.
Hey guys, what are you doing?
So it almost looks seamless. Now, unfortunately, like I mentioned, this clip is blurry. So that's why we would do multiple takes and make sure that the clip is clean, so that when I'm editing, I get that nice seamless cut. So now he's sitting, we saw him enter, and maybe I want to go to the close-up of the other character. Now, we didn't cover this. I know that it's very important and I want you to be aware. Do you see how this actor is facing the wrong way? I don't know if you can pick it up, but in the master shot, he's looking kind of to the direction of the boy in blue. And then he looks, his eye line is facing the boy in blue, but the camera is actually almost placed to the wrong side of him. It's what we call breaking the 180-degree line. He should be, his shoulder should be facing more towards the actor who's sitting across from him, so that it doesn't look like he's actually looking at the wrong actor. Okay, so we've got that going on. So that's his close-up. And then we've got a better, I don't know if we have a better close-up of the other guy, but basically what you want is to bring in your close-ups and cut between the two close-ups. You can do this, accomplish this by stacking like I'm doing here. A lot of people like to, when they first start editing, they don't quite know the whole timeline of the edit. So they'll put what we call the full master down at the bottom, and then they'll follow that. I'd recommend you be careful with that, because sometimes the timing will be not driven by you as an editor. You want to actually take control of the edit and cut where it needs to be cut, and then place the insert or close-up actually into the timeline. So what I mean by that is this. You go to the space where you want it to come in, you click on that clip, and you split it. And then you actually place it right in the middle. So it's actually creating one timeline. Okay. As you get more comfortable with editing, I would recommend you start doing that. It's going to feel off, but if you mess up a little, you can always do Command Z and undo that. Or you can just kind of change the in and out points slightly so it matches better. All right. Okay. So I'm going to exit out of this. This was the editing software. WeVideo, I hope you can still see this slide. Just to kind of wrap things up here, we also have, as I mentioned earlier, the canva.com software. It's free to use. A lot of schools have access to Canva, and Canva gives you all sorts of templates that can help you put your title on it, put your main actors' names, put the credits at the bottom. See a film by, you could put your name there. And the background art you can create and import, but you can also change that and put pictures that are stock images as well in Canva. Again, this is the summary, this one picture summary of your scene. It's giving, this is also what we call missing in action. It's a tagline, a little tiny thing that gets people hooked to be like, ooh, what's that about? It's your visual summary of your scene. Not only do you need that, you also need your written summary. Okay. And a few other fun, free options and places to find free sound, free music. Remember, we need copyright-free elements in your scenes. Places to find that are envatoelements.com at envato.com or freesound.org. You just have to create an account there, and you can download all sorts of like tracks, music, sound that you can import in to your editing softwares. I think that's the end of my slides, but again, I want to thank you all for joining us for workshop 3. We are looking for those elements in your workshop and in your project. And we want to make sure that you are utilizing your software appropriately, putting in copyright-free music, but you can also record using a recording device and import your sound effects yourself. And the last but not least, you want to create a track in your timeline that has space for your titles, or if you want to put any effects on your scene, you just keep adding tracks to any of your editing softwares that you use. You can add tracks, and that's how you can put text, video, and then all your sound tracks, right? So maybe you have like a boom sound, or you have a clap sound, or you want to add that. You would probably want to take out your camera audio and then put in your recorded sound And usually you're going to be able to sync that up when you do your slate, because if we see the sticks touch, then we hear that sound simultaneously. There'll be a little line that you'll see in the sound audio waves, and you'll be able to actually line that up, okay, to sync your sound. So with that being said, we're looking forward to seeing all those elements in your piece. And thank you so much for your time. All right. Awesome.
That was great, Jessica. I mean, it's such practical information.